It was mid-October, and the weather was still warm as we gathered to celebrate my cousin Andy's 12th birthday. Andy's house, located in the suburbs, was spacious, and we held a lively family party in the backyard, enjoying delicious food and the relaxed atmosphere. We loved playing hide and seek, and this time, we decided to use the entire house for the game. The only off-limits area was my uncle and aunt's bedroom, but the basement was fair game. Andy, my older brother, and I were all excited, preparing to find our hiding spots as the game began. I chose to hide in my Aunt Melissa's fashion studio in the basement. It was a strange place, filled with mannequins dressed in the clothes she designed, some of them headless, along with photography equipment and a green screen in the corner. The room always gave me a slightly eerie feeling, but that made it the perfect hiding spot. I grabbed a blanket and threw it over one of the mannequins to make it look like someone was hiding under it. Then, I hid myself under a desk in the corner, covered by another blanket, and waited. I could hear footsteps and laughter upstairs as the game continued. I held my breath, trying to stay as still as possible. After a while, everything suddenly became eerily quiet in the basement. Moments later, I heard my brother's voice calling my name from upstairs, saying that the game was over and food was being served. I was relieved and quickly ran up to join everyone in the backyard. While eating, I remembered that I had left the blanket on the mannequin. Knowing that Aunt Melissa would be upset, I decided to quietly head back to the basement to fix it. When I got back to the fashion studio and turned on the light, I noticed something strange. The mannequin that I had covered with the blanket was no longer standing. Instead, it appeared to be sitting on the floor. Even more unsettling, I could hear faint breathing and smelled something off in the room. I cautiously approached. As I got closer, I saw bare feet sticking out from under the blanket. My heart sank. No one at the party had bare feet, and none of our guests fit the description. Fear gripped me, and I rushed out of the basement, running to my uncle and shouting for him to call the police. Several of my family members joined me as we hurried back to the basement, but by the time we got there, the blanket was on the floor, and whoever had been there was gone. Despite a thorough search of the house, no one was found. That night, I couldn't shake the terror of what I had seen. It's an experience that has haunted me ever since. When I was a kid, we had a basement that always made me feel uneasy. Although it was just a regular storage space, I never liked going down there alone. The narrow stairs and the dim lighting always gave me the creeps. The basement was filled with all sorts of clutter, but what always caught my eye was the old wooden chest in the corner, covered by a dust-laden cloth. I remember my parents telling me it was just something left behind by my grandfather, nothing special. One day, my parents went out, leaving me alone at home. As evening approached, it started to rain, thunder rumbling in the distance, casting an eerie atmosphere over the house. Suddenly, the lights in the living room flickered a few times before going out completely. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, trying to find the circuit box, but of course, it was in the basement. Summoning my courage, I headed toward the stairs leading to the basement. With each step, the wooden boards creaked softly, sending chills down my spine. The air felt damper than usual, and as my fingers brushed against the wall, I touched the cold, chalky surface. Just as I was about to reach the circuit box, I heard a faint rustling sound coming from the corner. I paused, telling myself it was probably just a mouse or some small animal. But the sound grew louder, as though something was moving beneath the cloth covering the chest. I tried to ignore it and focus on the circuit box, but suddenly the cloth slid off, revealing the wooden chest. That's when I noticed the lid of the chest was slightly ajar. At first, I didn't want to deal with it, but curiosity soon overtook my fear. I slowly approached, the beam of light from my phone illuminating the chest. My hand gently pushed the lid open, and instead of old books or tools, inside was a yellowed letter and an old photograph. The letter contained just one chilling sentence: "Stop seeking the truth." The photograph showed an old house I had never seen before, and on the back, there was an address. Suddenly, from behind me, I heard the stairs creak, as if someone was slowly descending. My heart raced, and I held my breath. I turned around and saw a shadowy figure at the top of the stairs, slowly making its way down. I bolted toward the basement window, desperately trying to open it, but it was nailed shut from the outside. As I struggled in panic, the shadow suddenly stopped. I gathered enough courage to look back, but the figure had vanished, there was no one there. I had no idea what I had just seen, but I couldn't stay any longer. Grabbing the letter and photograph, I hurried out of the basement. Later, I found the house from the photograph, discovering it had a hidden connection to my family. The basement's secret was only the beginning of a much larger story. When I was 9, my family visited my great-grandfather's house in a small town in Idaho for Christmas. It was a charming 2-story home surrounded by fields and forests, and this year was particularly significant because my mom's boyfriend had joined us after my parents divorced the previous summer. A day after our arrival, my aunt, uncle, and cousins made a surprise visit, which was exciting since we were close. One night, while the adults engaged in conversation, my cousins, Sam, Evan, and Kennedy, and I decided to play our usual monster game in the basement. In this game, Sam and Evan would hide in the dark while Kennedy and I tried to find them. As I stepped into the basement, the pitch blackness enveloped us, illuminated only by the faint glow of the pellet stove and the moonlight streaming through a window. After a few minutes of searching, Sam and Evan jumped out to scare us, and we all dashed back upstairs. After a brief pause, we readied for another round. This time, I led the way down. Suddenly, I froze at the bottom of the stairs, my heart racing. I noticed a figure standing outside the window, and I urgently gestured for Kennedy to stop. We whispered for Sam and Evan, who dismissed our fears, assuming we were trying to scare them. But when we pointed out the figure, the mood shifted. Sam and Evan finally believed us when I told them everyone else was upstairs. I cautiously went to the living room to check, and my stomach sank when I found the adults all gathered there. There was definitely someone outside. Returning to the basement, I was shaking as I told my cousins the truth. Their expressions shifted from playful to terrified, and Kennedy began to cry softly. We remained at the top of the stairs, debating what to do. After a few tense minutes, we ventured back down, but the figure was gone. Relieved, we decided to play ping pong instead. Turning on the lights, we noticed the window cracked open. My heart dropped as I saw a man in his mid-40s seated in one of the chairs, staring at us with a sinister smile. Panic surged through me, and I screamed for everyone to run. We sprinted upstairs and burst into the living room, crying for help. One of my uncles, a cop, grabbed my grandfather's gun and headed back downstairs. After a tense few moments, he returned, declaring the basement empty. But footprints in the snow outside confirmed our fears. Someone had been there. That night, I clung to my mom as I tried to sleep, still trembling from the encounter. We never played that game again. My grandpa was upset about the open window but relieved we were unharmed. He passed away in October 2017, and I miss him dearly. Since that night, basements have always terrified me, a lingering fear that has stayed with me as I've grown older.